The oxygen level is dropping. You check the reading, then check it again. The number is the same. You're 8 people inside a sealed glass structure. And the atmosphere you built from scratch is slowly turning against you. Your head is starting to ache. Concentrating takes effort. You've been in here for 14 months. And the one thing you were certain of, the air, is no longer certain. Nobody built this to fail. $200 million, years of preparation. The most sophisticated privately built closed ecosystem ever attempted. And it's dying. Someone is going to have to open the door. That structure was in Oracle, Arizona. The year was 1991. The experiment was called Biosphere 2. Elon Musk's plan is to build a self-sustaining city on Mars within the next 30 years. 1 million people, fully closed life support, no dependence on Earth. A city that once built sustains itself indefinitely. This video isn't about whether that's the right ambition or whether Musk is the right person to attempt it, because the hardest part of a Mars city isn't getting there. It's what happens after the door closes. For the first 6 months, Biosphere 2 looked like a triumph. Oxygen stable, crops growing, the miniature ocean holding temperature. Scientists outside were calling it the most ambitious ecological experiment in human history. Inside, the crew were eating food they grew, breathing air the ecosystem generated, living proof that a sealed human habitat could work. Then the oxygen started dropping. Not from a breach. Not from anything the designers had anticipated. From the soil. Microbial activity in the agricultural beds was consuming oxygen at a rate the models hadn't predicted. The concrete in the structure was absorbing CO2 faster than calculated. 2 variables, both understood individually, both behaving differently when the whole system ran together inside a closed environment with no external correction available. By January 1993, oxygen levels had fallen to 14%, the equivalent of altitude sickness at 4,000 meters. Crew members were struggling to think. Physical work was becoming dangerous. They broke the seal at 18 months. 8 people. An exit 200 meters away. A rescue team outside. Now remove all 3 of those. Picture this. A dust storm, the kind Mars produces for weeks at a time, takes out 30% of the solar array. Power drops. The primary atmospheric processor switches to backup. The backup has never been tested at full continuous load, because until now there was never a reason to run it that hard. It's overheating. Temperatures inside the housing are climbing. The engineering team has 20 minutes before they need to make a call. They can keep running the backup and risk a complete processor failure. No atmospheric regulation for an entire sector. Or they can cut power to reduce the load. Medical systems, heating, water recycling. Everything is non-essential until the moment it isn't. Someone has to decide which sector loses power first. That person is not elected. There is no appeal process, no neighboring authority to escalate to. And if you disagree with the decision, there is nowhere to go. The engineers working to fix the processor are breathing the same air it's failing to produce. Now add this. If something goes wrong on Mars, Earth cannot respond in real time. At minimum distance, a signal takes 3 minutes each way. At maximum, 22. There is no emergency call that gets answered live. No rapid evacuation. No external intervention that moves faster than physics allows. Every crisis that happens on Mars is local. Permanently, structurally, physically local. In 1993, the Biosphere 2 crew had 3 days to decide to open the door. On Mars, that decision belongs entirely to the people who control the habitat. And the people who control the habitat are the same people who built it, own it, and determine what constitutes an emergency worth acting on. That is not an engineering problem. The moment people cannot leave, infrastructure becomes authority. Scale changes everything. 10,000 people require food production with no failed seasons. Atmospheric systems that cannot go offline without a backup already running. Water recycling with zero margin for contamination. And here is the detail that almost never makes the coverage. Replacement parts. Every mechanical system in a Mars city depends on components that either have to be manufactured on site or shipped from Earth on a launch window that opens once every 26 months. Miss that window and you wait 2 years, with whatever you have left. The International Space Station, the most continuously occupied artificial environment in human history, is resupplied every 90 days by the largest space agency on Earth. Every life support system aboard was designed with that supply chain as a baseline assumption. Remove it and the station becomes uninhabitable within months. A Mars city has no such assumption available. And here's the part that stops most people when they actually hear it. The closed habitat problem, keeping people alive indefinitely inside a sealed artificial environment, has never been solved. Not by Musk, not by NASA, not by ESA, not by anyone. Biosphere 2 was the most serious attempt ever made at scale. It lasted 18 months at 8 people. That number has not meaningfully advanced since 1993. In 1880, industrialist George Pullman built a company city outside Chicago. He owned the housing, the utilities, the stores, the church. Then wages fell. Rents didn't. Workers couldn't leave because the company controlled their survival. When they struck, Pullman shut off the water. Not as punishment, as a negotiating position. What Pullman built looked like a city. It functioned like a city. Right up until the moment the company's interests diverged from the residents' survival. At which point the residents discovered they had no vote, no neighboring authority, and no protection that moved faster than the company's lawyers. Elon Musk is not George Pullman, but the structure being built is identical, and structure doesn't care about intentions. Go back inside the dome. January 1993, oxygen at 14% and still falling. Your thinking is slow, your chest is tight. You have been sealed inside for over a year, dependent on systems you didn't design, managed by an organization whose interests are not perfectly identical to yours. You look at the seal on the door. In Arizona, someone outside made the call. On Mars, there is no outside. The engineering solutions exist. Redundant atmospheric processors, closed-loop water systems, modular power grids, and in isolation, each of them works. The problem isn't any single solution. The problem is that every redundancy requires maintenance by people who are themselves dependent on the systems they're maintaining. And when the organization owning those systems faces a constraint, a supply failure, a resource shortfall, a decision made in a boardroom on another planet, the people inside have no mechanism to override it. There is a satellite image of Starbase, Texas. It is already a city, already incorporated, already the only jurisdiction on that land. The entity controlling the housing, the utilities, the employment, and the local government is the same entity. Residents cannot vote for their own mayor. The structure governing their survival and the structure governing their lives belong to one organization, with no external authority available that operates at human speed. That is not a Mars hypothetical. That is this week. Right now, somewhere in Starbase, a reading on an instrument is either stable or it isn't. And the person responsible for that reading works for the same organization that owns the building they sleep in, the power keeping it warm, and the governance structure with no mechanism to challenge any of it. That is what 10,000 people on Mars looks like. Not a frontier, a dependency. Every city in human history has eventually been held accountable to something outside itself. A government, a court, a neighboring power with its own interests. Starbase has none of those. Mars will have none of those. What you're being asked to trust isn't the engineering. It's the founders' continued goodwill. And history has a very specific word for a place where that's your only protection.